Benzene ring and other dream discoveries. One of the most prominent organic chemists of his time, German chemist Friedrich August Kekulé, was the first to theorize the chemical structure of benzene. According to him, Kekulé dreamt of a snake eating its own tail, which led him to the discovery of the 6-carbon cyclical structure of benzene. Another chemist who was assisted in his discovery by a dream was Dmitry Mendeleev. Mendeleev was seated in his study, trying to come up with a way to classify the chemical elements. As he struggled to find a suitable classification of the elements according to their chemical properties, Mendeleev grew exhausted and fell asleep. As he slept, he dreamt of a table where all the elements fell into places required. Waking up, he quickly wrote it down on a piece of paper. Thus, the periodic table of elements came into existence. One other person influenced by dreams in his works was the Indian mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan. Although Srinivasa had almost no formal training in math, he was able to contribute a lot to mathematical theory, including solving several problems that were previously thought unsolvable. Srinivasa claims that much of his insight was gained from his family goddess, Namagiri Thayar, who provided him with mathematical insight through his dreams. In Srinivasa's dreams, he dreamt of a red screen formed by flowing blood, when suddenly, a hand would begin to write on the screen, writing a number of elliptical integrals, which Srinivasa would immediately commit to writing as soon as he woke up. Xenoglossy. Xenoglossy is the seemingly paranormal phenomenon of being able to speak a foreign language without having learned it naturally. Accounts of xenoglossy have existed since ancient times, and are still reported today. Most commonly, there are numerous accounts of people waking up from a coma, suddenly speaking fluently in a foreign language, while sometimes losing the ability to speak in their native tongue. There are also accounts of people suddenly mastering foreign languages after suffering from head trauma. While these cases are widely reported and documented, most of the people who have seemingly gained mastery of a language after a coma have at least had exposure to that language in one way or another. Another form of xenoglossy that has been widely reported is xenoglossy in dreams. Many people have told stories of dreams they had, where they perfectly understood and conversed in foreign languages they had never been exposed to before. In one case, a Redditor details his experience with xenoglossy that had occurred in a strange dream. In the dream, the Redditor was a Chinese fisherman. He then went through the daily routine that would be expected of a fisherman living in China, waking up early in the morning, buying fish from the docks, purchasing a pack of cigarettes and smoking heavily, before finally returning home to rest and so on. In the dream, the Redditor had no recollection of being anyone other than a Chinese fish vendor, and in the dream he spoke in fluent Mandarin, as if he'd spoken it his whole life. The dream was so realistic that when he woke up, he got ready to go buy the fish to sell for the day, before suddenly remembering he was in Oregon on a ski trip, and he had never known a word of Mandarin in his life. There are many other cases of people who have dreamt in other languages they have never been exposed to, but still, there is no evidence that the language in the dream would be accurate to real life. The machine that can record your dreams. In 2013, several articles and videos appeared about Japanese researchers who were able to create a machine that was successfully able to record a person's dream. Although the claim might have been slightly exaggerated and sensationalized in future retellings of the story in online magazines, here are the facts. In a study published in Science magazine, Japanese scientists used 3 test subjects which were hooked up to an fMRI machine to measure brain activity. The subjects were then shown a variety of objects when awake, with their brain activity recorded in response to the visual stimuli of each object. The subjects were then made to fall asleep, and had their brain activity recorded and correlated with the different objects they had been shown while awake. The results were then matched together to be able to tell what they were dreaming of. The subjects were then awoken and told to describe their dreams, to verify the results. This process was repeated 200 times, and a machine learning algorithm was used to be able to predict the images they see in their dreams, with a corresponding image used to display the objects they had dreamed of. The result was this video, the first ever human recording of a dream. The images shown are stock images, retrieved from search engines like Google Images, and serve to display a representation of what the subjects have dreamt of, instead of an accurate recreation. Technology doesn't work in dreams. A common theme in dreams as technology either not working or malfunctioning. People usually report clocks or watches being completely unreadable, phones failing to open or work properly, among other technological malfunctions. Everything from analog to digital technology seems to fail in the dreamscape. There are many proposed explanations for this, from the dream world being a purely emotional and subjective construct. Therefore, our brains are unable to build fully functional machines in dreams, due to them being completely logical constructs, as opposed to emotional and subjective. A more rational theory claims that this is mostly due to the often surreal and inexplicable logic of dreams. People seem to change before your eyes, settings and places disappear, replaced by new ones, and things happen without any reason whatsoever. So it's only logical to assume that technology would also follow this same chaotic dream logic. Blind dreams. What do blind people dream of? Is a question that has popped into almost everyone's minds at some point in time. The answer to this question differs when talking about people who have been blind since birth, or people who have lost their vision later on in life. People who are not born blind but have lost their vision later on in their lives dream in visual images, using the memories they formed while they still had eyesight, to form the images in their dreams. While the case is much more complicated with people who have been born blind. While it's almost impossible to ascertain if blind people dream in images just from asking them, since they have not formed the concept of visual images, along with the associations that go with it. But research in the matter, which compared the brain scans of visually impaired people since birth with those of normal people, showed that even blind people show the same type of vision-related electrical activity in the brain while sleeping, similar to those without any visual impairments. Thus, blind people also seem to dream visually. The visual sensations are provided by the brain, and do not correlate to any outside objects or stimulus. Thus, a blind person might dream of blobs of color moving across their vision, that are usually associated with other senses such as smell and sound. That being said, the frequency of these visual stimuli in dreams are much less in blind people than normal people, since blind people's dreams usually include more of other sensory stimuli such as smell, touch, and sound. Womb dreams. Another similar question to the one posed above. Is a fetus's dream in the womb? And the answer is most likely yes. According to scientists, fetuses spend most of their time in the womb in REM sleep, which is associated with dreaming, and so therefore are most likely dreaming. The dreams most likely consist of the sensations they feel or have felt in the womb, with the same visual sensations described above. Devil's Trill Sonata. One night, in the year 1713, famous Italian composer Giuseppe Tartini claimed that he was visited by the devil in a dream. In the dream, he made a pact with the devil. In exchange for his soul, the devil would be Tartini's servant and teacher. Tartini then gave the devil his violin, after which he proceeded to play a sonata, which was, according to him, so wonderful and so beautiful, played with such great art and intelligence, as I had never even conceived in my boldest flights of fantasy. Tartini then woke up right away from his dream, grabbed his violin, and tried to recreate the piece played by the devil. According to him though, even though the piece he played was considered to be his best work yet, he still maintains that the sonata he played doesn't even hold a candle to the original he heard in his dream. Dream hacking. Researchers at MIT were able to come up with a unique, albeit relatively simple invention, to attempt to alter the content of a person's dreams. The invention is called Dormio, a glove-like device equipped with sensors and an audio output. As you fall asleep, the sensors detect the sleeping state you're in, and as soon as you enter hypnagogia, a state between consciousness and unconsciousness, an audio message consisting of one word is played from the glove. In a study consisting of 50 people, the Dormio glove was able to successfully insert a tiger into people's dreams by playing the word tiger as the person entered hypnagogia. Another method for controlling or influencing dreams utilizes a device that emits scents while dreaming, although this was not limited to only altering the content of dreams. In a 2014 study, by exposing smokers to the smell of cigarettes accompanied by that of rotten eggs or fish while they slept, the smokers smoked less the following week, even though they did not consciously remember this association. While these methods of dream hacking still have a long ways to go, they seem to be promising in influencing and controlling the narrative of the dream, which might usher in a new era of interactive media as we sleep, along with influencing positive behavior and curbing negative behaviors while asleep. Despite that, there are still some concerns by some scientists that this technology might be abused. One such area where they might be abused is advertising, since ever-present devices like smartwatches or smart home devices like Alexa might be used to place subliminal messages while you sleep, to influence your dreams with advertisements. The lamp story. This story was first posted on Reddit in response to a question posted on Ask Reddit. The question was, has anyone ever felt a deep personal connection to a person they met in their dream, only to realize that they never existed? Opie then replied with his story. While Opie was in his last semester at college, he was knocked out by a football player. While he was unconscious, he lived a different life. In that dream life, Opie met the woman of his dreams, won her over, and got married to her after 2 years. The woman then bore him a daughter, then a son. Opie had a good job and all in all, lived an incredibly satisfying life with his wife and 2 kids. That was until, one day while he was sitting on the couch, he noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd. The lamp seemed to be inverted, as if it was inside out. Opie was perplexed by this, and the inverted lamp took all of his focus. For 3 whole days, he refused to sleep, eat, or talk to anyone. His wife grew extremely worried, and took the kids to their mother's house, before finally, Opie had an epiphany. The lamp was not real, the house was not real, nor was his wife or children. The last 10 years of his life were a dream. That was when the inverted lamp rapidly expanded, until it took up all of his perspective. All Opie saw was red, and he started hearing voices around him. He was taken to the hospital after he had woken up from being knocked out by the football player. Opie then says that the next 3 years were the worst of his life. He suffered from extreme depression, grieving the loss of his wife and children, which had never even existed in the first place. Opie claims that he still sees glimpses out of his peripheral vision of his son, who is perpetually 5 years old. Dreams of astronauts in space are highly classified. This is more of a conspiracy theory than fact. The theory is based on the unfounded claim that NASA has continually denied that their astronauts have had any dreams in space, despite that not actually being the case, with even some astronauts themselves also denying that they have had any dreams in space. NASA allegedly further supported what they said by claiming that astronauts are not the type of people who dream, referring to how they are highly logical people and do not have the time for flights of fantasy. That being said, it is proven that everyone dreams, even if they fail to remember their dreams afterwards. With that fact in mind, some people have theorized that astronauts did in fact have dreams in space, but that NASA claimed otherwise since the dreams were highly classified for whatever reason. Another conspiracy theory that ties into this one is the theory of astronaut night terrors, which had originated on 4chan. According to the anon who wrote up the theory, astronauts in low orbit have reported constantly suffering from night terrors. All the astronauts described the same nightmare, of perpetually falling into what they describe as a lamprey-like mouth, with rows of teeth. The anon further goes on to explain that the lamprey symbolizes Earth, which is possessive of its children or humanity, and desires to be the only planet in the solar system that can recycle our energy. Allegedly, every planet craves life, in order to feel the sensation of free thermodynamic exchanges on their surfaces. Therefore, according to the 4chan user, the Earth is somewhat sentient, and is highly against humanity leaving its surface for the stars. Geometric nightmares. In a YouTube video uploaded by YouTuber GJ on the 3rd of July, he explains how he had these incredibly strange geometric nightmares as a kid. These nightmares completely terrified him, but he was unable to explain them accurately in words as a child. In the nightmares, he would be in a completely white void. There would be a geometric shape, usually a sphere, as big as a grain of sand, in the middle of the void. There would also be a slight noise in the background, whether it was room ambience, static, or water droplets echoing in the void. As the nightmare went on, the shape would rapidly grow, with the background noises growing louder with it. As the shape grew in size, and the sounds increased in volume, panic and anxiety set in, increasing gradually with the size of the shape. His ears would then start hurting as the sound reached almost painful levels, and the panic would be in full swing as the shape grew to an unimaginable size, growing larger and larger than any size the brain can even comprehend. He would then start hearing his name being called louder and louder. He would then wake up to find that his mother had been calling his name, attempting to wake him up. GJ compares the dream to something so abstract and impossible to imagine, like witnessing the Big Bang. GJ thought he was all alone in this recurring abstract nightmare of his, but after searching the web, he was surprised to find many people who have suffered from these geometric nightmares, as they called them. The dreams, as people described them, were pretty similar to his, with slight differences. Sometimes the shape of the object that was growing rapidly in the void differed, while others had dreams of the opposite. An unimaginably large object, rapidly shrinking instead of growing in size. Some people dreamt of multiple shapes, while others described hypnagogic hallucinations before they slept, which consisted mostly of complicated geometric shapes moving across their vision. But the thing that was the same in all these experiences was the extreme feeling of panic and anxiety, with some even referring to this as the worst nightmare they've ever experienced. The Mannequin Dream. This strange dream was submitted by a user on the 40ana forums. The user describes a recurring nightmare she always had as a child, but only while sleeping over at her grandparents' house. In the dream, the user would be laying in bed awake, with the overwhelming feeling of needing to drink a glass of milk. The only bottle of milk, though, in the dream, was in her grandparents' fridge. This completely terrified her, though, due to the presence of an old and decaying ventriloquist dummy sleeping inside the fridge. As the need for milk would increase, she would be forced to swallow her fear and make her way to the fridge. As she opened the fridge, she would be confronted by rotting food surrounding the green rotting dummy, which was fortunately asleep. She then had to be careful while reaching for the bottle of milk in the fridge beyond the dummy, so as not to wake it. Often, she was successful, and the dummy did not wake. Other times the dummy would wake up. It would look very angry and snap at her, laughing and shouting, "Oh, you've done it now." The electricity throughout the house would then black out and the house would burn up to the ground. The user would then wake up from the nightmare to find she was sleepwalking, and she was in the kitchen holding an empty glass. The OP had the dream one last time, in which the dummy burned with the house, after which she completely stopped having this dream. The OP then continues the story, claiming that years later, while she was sitting with her mother, a TV ad came on with a ventriloquist dummy in it. The user's mom said the words, "Oh, you've done it now," seemingly out of nowhere, the exact same words uttered by the dummy in the user's nightmare. Surprised by this, the user asked her mother why she said this, and was surprised to discover that her mother also had the same recurring nightmare, about the same rotting ventriloquist dummy while at her grandparents' house. The Nondream Dream. This was a story that was sent anonymously to a now defunct paranormal blog. This story, under the title The Nondream Dream, tells of a dream the author once had. In the dream, the author wakes up on an operating table, surrounded by very tall, thin entities. The entities have bulbous heads, black almond eyes, with their faces lacking a nose or mouth. They were all dressed in long flowing robes like priests. The dream was in black and white. As the narrator lay on the table, he observed the creatures reaching in his chest cavity with their thin, spidery fingers. They would then move their hands around inside and pull out organ after organ, after which they would walk or seemingly glide away with each one. The creatures would then return with a dark gooey mass, which they would use to replace the organs in the man's chest. Throughout all this, the narrator felt an overwhelming sense of calm. As he looked to see where the creatures were taking his organs, he saw one of them, lying motionless on an operating table next to him. He realized that the creature laying next to him was dead, and that they were trying to revive it using the man's own organs, which they would replace with the black gooey mass that lay inside the creature's open chest cavity. When the narrator realized this, he woke up with a start, and felt sick to his stomach. He quickly rushed to the bathroom where he threw up what looked like black flakes or ashes of burnt paper, similar to the material the creatures were pushing into his chest cavity during the operation.